Hi everyone and welcome to Autopilot Training 102. Today's session is a follow-up to Autopilot Training 101, where we covered the basics of configuring your Autopilot account and creating your first few journeys. Now, for those of you who weren't able to attend Autopilot Training 101 or are attending today's session for the first time in order to get some of that more advanced training that you're really looking for, a little bit about me. So my name is Eloise Shuttleworth. I'm a customer success manager here at Autopilot. I mentioned this during yesterday's session, but my role here at Autopilot is very much focused on implementation and ongoing strategy. So I'm really excited to be showing you all how you can create some highly personalized journeys today, as well as some multi-channel communication strategies. Now, to that end, I am going to be spending the majority of the session in the Autopilot platform again, and taking you through two key pieces today. The first of which is building a lead nurture journey, and the second is configuring your first proactive heads up. I'll also be leaving about 15 minutes at the end for a Q&A forum. With that in mind, a quick reminder again about the questions section in the GoToMeeting panel. Please feel free to note your questions in here as we go through today's session, and then I'll tackle as many as I can during the 15-minute Q&A at the end. I'll also be sending a follow-up email with a recording of this session, as well as some additional resources that you can leverage in your own time. So don't worry about taking notes. You will get that email through within the next couple of hours. So let's get started. And before we jump into the Autopilot platform and build out that basic lead nurture journey, I did want to give you a high-level overview of the acquire, nurture, grow methodology that we really live and breathe by here at Autopilot. Now, as you may have noticed, we're extremely passionate about empowering marketers to create innovative journeys at each stage of the customer's lifecycle. And so we really try to build out a story within each definable stage of that lifecycle to better target our audience and achieve those key milestones. Now, we are going to be focusing on the nurture phase today, but it's really important to understand the full life cycle so that you can appreciate how your journeys will feed into and therefore complement one another moving forwards. So with that in mind, the very first phase that we focus on here at Autopilot is the acquisition phase. And this is really built around turning those unknown users that hit your site or your marketing materials into known users that you can start to target and engage through personalized communication pieces. Now, journeys within this phase often focus around inquiry forms, welcome campaigns, and trial signups, and they're really designed to quickly qualify your leads and then route them to their respective team funnels. Once you've acquired your leads and qualified them, the next phase to focus on is the nurture phase. And this phase is all about getting your leads to that point in their life cycle at which they're ready to buy. So statistically speaking, we find that only about 25% of leads are ready to buy straight away. The other 75% of leads will likely purchase within the next 6 to 12 months, but you really need to actively nurture them to that point of purchase. So key to this is educating leads around who you are, what you do, and how you can help them to achieve their goals. Because of this, journeys in this phase will often revolve around thought leadership, customer reviews and proof points, product updates, and those carefully placed calls to action that are leading those acquired leads to convert into nurtured paying customers. Now, we are going to tackle this in today's session. So if you are looking to focus on this stage of the life cycle, this is absolutely what we're going to cover today. Once you've got your leads to convert, you will then enter phase 3 of the acquire, nurture, grow methodology. And your focus will shift from the acquire and nurture to really growing with that customer that you've just acquired through your nurture programs. Encouraging them to take key steps towards success milestones, updating them with new product features, and always staying ahead of the curve where best practices and industry insights are concerned is really key to this stage of the life cycle. Because of that, journeys within this phase will often incorporate onboarding steps, newsletters, NPS surveys, webinars, and even renewal notices when it comes time in that life cycle for the customer to renew. Keep in mind though, the goal here is really to keep your customers excited and invested in your brand and gain their loyalty over time to ensure that mutual growth and success. Now, you may have noticed from my slide that I have a number of case studies for each of these 3 stages, and I'll be sure to include links to all of them in my follow-up email if you're interested in learning more about how some of our best-in-class customers are achieving fantastic results in each of these stages of the life cycle. We also have a ton of resources available via our Liftoff blog and Flight School, 2 forums that I did share with you off the back of Autopilot 101, but I really encourage you to check them out after this session if you haven't done so already, because there are a number of really great resources on there that you can leverage and use as best-in-class examples when just looking for a bit of inspiration to create your own journeys. The other thing that I'll show you when we are going through the platform today is our guidebooks that are available within the journey canvas of each of your Autopilot instances. We do have some pre-populated guides in there that you can use as a basis to start building out some really robust journeys within each of these 3 phases of the life cycle. Speaking of the dashboard, however, let's jump into it and get started, and we can build out this lead nurture journey together. So as I mentioned, we are really going to focus today on the nurture stage of that acquire, nurture, and grow methodology. And I'm going to show you how you can build out a basic lead nurture journey in Autopilot. In line with yesterday's session, I'm going to approach it as though I'm building a lead nurture journey for my e-commerce business, which is the work mode, so that I can really bring it to life for all of you and provide some context behind my approach here today. Now, for those of you who weren't able to attend the Autopilot 101 session, the work mode is my demo business. I'll show it quickly to you here now so you can see it on the screen. And really, it's an e-commerce platform that sells workwear fashion to professional men and women. So just keep that business model in mind as we go through this lead nurture journey. And again, I will tie everything back to that model so that it makes a bit more sense as to why I'm putting things in the place that I am. So with all of this in mind, the nurture journey really revolves around 3 key things. Firstly, educating your leads. Second, staying top of mind. And third, providing those carefully placed calls to action that speak to your customers or your leads at different points in their journey. So let's look at a really simple nurture journey to show you how easy this is to put in place, more from a foundational point of view, and then I'll talk through exactly why I've popped these shapes in the order that I have and the intent behind each of those shapes and the content that I'll be crafting throughout. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with a list trigger, and then I'm going to add a number of emails to my canvas, and in between those emails I'm going to add a slight delay. Now to connect them. And I'm going to be connecting all of these shapes today, the send email shapes, on an on-send connection. And that essentially means that as soon as this email has been sent to the contact, they'll progress through to the next add delay shape. Now, the trigger that you use for your first lead nurture journey is really up to you, but it does need to contain everyone, both now and in the future, who you consider to be a lead that requires nurturing. So I'd highly recommend using a list trigger, a smart segment trigger, or a form submitted trigger, depending on the sort of main way in which you engage with your customers and are able to segment them within Autopilot. For the work mode, I've compiled a list of all of my warm leads, and I'm then going to use the list trigger to pop them into the journey. So I can select that list, And then I'm also going to select the third configuration option here when building out my journey so that I add people in the future who are added to my list. And this just essentially means that it'll be a nurture machine that's always running in the back end for me, depending on those leads that I add within Autopilot to my lead nurture contacts. So for the work mode, just to let you know how I've created this list, these really are leads that have come through my newsletter form, my contact us form, and also those leads who have come through my social channels. But the key thing to note here is that they're leads who haven't yet purchased an item on my site. Now, as the aim is to get them to purchase, this list is the perfect audience for my lead nurture journey. Now, you may have noticed that I have a lot of emails on my canvas here. And when it comes to content for a lead nurture journey, I really like to group my content into three main stages of a funnel that a customer might flow through. So we have the top of the funnel, which is all about educational content and thought leadership. We then move to the middle of the funnel, which is more closely aligned with my brand and how it can benefit the customer. And then when they reach the bottom of the funnel, the content is going to be much more heavily call to action focused so that I'm really driving those leads to convert on my site. Because of this funnel approach, I'm going to add slightly different communication pieces to each of my 4 emails that follow this 3-stage funnel approach. And I'm going to do 2 high-level or top of funnel content emails, 1 middle of the funnel content, and then 1 bottom of the funnel content with that carefully placed call to action. So let's take a look at these emails. And again, not to sound too cooking show host, but I have created them in the past. And really why I did that is so that I can take you through exactly how I've crafted the emails and a couple of tips and tricks that you can take away and apply at your end without you having to sit there and watch me build out 4 emails, which I think would probably take up the majority of this 45 minutes. So the first email I mentioned to you is going to be very top of the funnel, which is more educational. So these emails are really high-level, educational, thought-provoking emails that speak to the main reason that leads came to my website in the first place, which for the work mode is really to learn about workwear fashion and get inspiration from the latest trends. Now, because of this and because I understand exactly why people came to my site, I've built my first email around the new concept of workwear fashion and one of the main frustrations that people feel when it comes to professional attire. And I know that it's that people take a lot of time in the morning to select their outfit, and then very often they're going to be late for work because of that time spent on their outfit. So when it comes to my email, you'll notice that I've started with an eye-catching image, and then following on underneath that, I've started my copy with really a short, relevant hook in bold here, which is designed to capture the attention of my readers, and then some follow-up copy, which is more of a teaser or a taster of what they can expect when they click through to my site. Now, because these are designed to capture that initial engagement and get users to click through to your site, really you don't need to let content be a barrier here. It's really about importing that content that has most context is going to engage your users from the get-go. And you can actually utilize your existing content to do this and then link to it from some catchy email copy that sums it up, as I have done here within my email. The other thing that it's important to have in your lead nurture journey emails is a really clear call to action. Now, I like to use buttons, but you can also hyperlink text depending on what's well for your business. My last pro tip here is try and use personalization variables wherever possible so that your content speaks to the person who's reading it. Now you can notice or see that I've popped a personalization variable in the beginning to say hi, first name, But I've also used that personalization variable within the subject line to really grab the reader's attention from the get-go in their inbox and get them clicking through to my content. Now, email 2, again, is going to be that higher level content. Let me bring that up for you. But I'm going to choose a slightly different take on my high level content this time and focus on the other reason why people come to my e-commerce site, which is really to understand and shop the latest trends and get some inspiration around what they can be wearing to work. So again, I've used my personalization in the header. I've got a really catchy image and then a bit of a hook when it comes to my first statement, followed by some tantalizing copy that is really going to speak to the customer and hopefully getting them clicking through on my big call to action, where again, I've used that button feature here. Now, email 3 is more middle of the funnel content driven. And so because of that, I really want to start bringing in the work mode a bit more, as opposed to just the general reasons why people come to my site. So if I bring up my Lead Nurture 3 email, you can see how I'm doing that. So my middle of the funnel content really speaks to my brand, speaks to how we can help our leads or the people that are coming to my site to overcome those frustrations that I've talked to them about in my top of the funnel content. And it's really designed, again, to be much more closely aligned with my brand, how I can help those customers overcome those frustrations and achieve the look that they're going for when coming to my site. Again, using a strong image at the top, a hook, minimal amounts of copy that I've actually taken straight from my site, so there's no need to spend a huge amount of time compiling copy for these lead nurture journeys. Popping in a compelling call to action here as well, so I can drive these leads to my site, hopefully get them shopping. And then using those personalization variables within the copy of the email and the subject line. Now, last but not least in my content, I'm getting to the very bottom of the funnel when people receive email 4. So you'll notice when I bring this email in that it's very heavily call to action driven. And for me, that call to action with an e-commerce site is really giving those leads a coupon code or a discount that they can use at checkout. So if somebody does get through to my last email, the desire here is really to get them to have some intent for purchase, to give them incentive to do that, and to get them clicking through to my site using a coupon code and hopefully making that first purchase, which is really the ultimate goal of my lead nurture journey here. One really good pro tip is, if you are going to be using a very strong call to action focused email, do call it out in the subject line. It's much more likely to increase your open rates and get people clicking through to your site when they actually are able to avail of the offer that you're mentioning in your email. So now I have my content, let's talk about the delays between my email sends. This is really important to get right, because staying top of mind with your leads is crucial to a healthy relationship and those conversion rates at different stages within the buyer's life cycle. Now, the length of the delay will really depend on your sales cycle, but as a general rule of thumb, we've found that companies who send marketing communication pieces to their leads every 2 to 4 weeks generate twice as many conversions compared to companies that contact their customers every 4 to 12 weeks. So as a result of that, I'm going to pop in a 2-week delay between my email sends. Perfect. Now you can see that really by just adding 4 emails, I've already set up a 2-month lead nurture journey that is going to run in the back end for me and make sure I'm capturing all of those leads that have shown interest in my site, in my brand, and in my business proposition, but haven't yet purchased and converted into a paying customer. Now, if you want to get a bit more complex with your lead nurture journey, you can always send contacts down escalated paths depending on their engagement. So let's say a contact clicks on a link within my first educational email, which is this one here. I know they're more engaged than those who just opened my email, so I might want to wait less time to send them my stage 2 email and my call to action because they're much more likely to convert, and I want them to convert quicker because that is the ultimate goal of my journey here. Now, because of that, I can use the check email status condition shape that you see down here in the bottom of my list of shapes here. And I can use this to check and see how people are engaging with my email after I've sent it to them. So let's pop this in here. I'm still going to wait those initial 2 days because I want to give my leads time to see the email in their inbox, hopefully open it and click through. But after those 2 days, I then want to send people down different paths depending on whether or not they've clicked a link in my email. So let's delete this connection for now. And instead, let's send everybody after those 2 days into a check. And for my check, I'm going to be looking at the original email I sent, which is lead nurture 1. And because I'm looking for a click here, and a click to me shows a lot more intent than an open, which is why I'm using it, I'm going to send those people who have clicked into a quicker or a more escalated email path. And so I'm essentially going to skip this second educational email and send them straight through to the middle of the funnel with my content that's much more highly focused on the work mode and the benefit that we can bring to them as a shopper. So my connection here would be has clicked. Now, if they haven't clicked, I'm going to send them back up to my top of the funnel email here, and they'll continue along this less escalated path based on that original engagement they showed with my first email. For those that have shown intent though and engagement, let's follow up, sending them down an escalated path straight to those 2 emails, middle of the funnel and bottom of the funnel. Now, because these users have shown intent, the other thing that I might want to do here with my journey is not wait as long as 2 weeks to send them the call to action email after I've sent them the work mode focused middle of the funnel content. So let's say that I also shorten this delay to 1 week instead of 2 weeks. So you can see here how I've created 2 paths to my journey based on engagement and user intent that I have been able to understand through the use of a check email status condition shape to see how my users have engaged with that original email after those 2 weeks that I've given them to see that email, read it, and then be sent down the different paths. Now, let's say that a lead takes my offer of a discount code and purchases an item from my website by using one of my online order forms. There are a number of really great ways that I can follow up with that user and my team through Autopilot. So I just wanted to highlight a few of them today for you before we wrap up this lead nurture journey training. So, as a customer will purchase online by submitting an order form on my website, I'm going to use a form submitted trigger to listen for that form submission. Whenever someone submits this form, I can then automatically do a couple of things. First of all, I want to notify my internal team that somebody has made a purchase on my website. So I'll use the send notification action shape. The next thing I want to do is send that customer an SMS message to say, thank you for your purchase. We'll be in touch when your order has been shipped. So to do that, I can also connect a send SMS shape. Now, alongside sending them an SMS, I also want to update their profile within Autopilot with the product that they purchased and the date that it was purchased on. So to do that, I connect an update field. And when updating a field, note that you can update multiple fields at the one time. Now, lastly, I've updated the field against their contact record, but I also want to update their purchase score by 1 to signify that they've made one purchase. So I'm going to, last but not least, add a change score shape. And this would update their purchase score against their profile with an integer of 1. Really, what this will tell me is their purchase score, how many times they've purchased on my website. So that if in future I wanted to build out a segment of those customers who are regularly purchasing on my site and have, let's say, made over 10 purchases in the last 2 months, I could do that through a smart segment by just looking at that purchase score against their contact record and then potentially sending them an offer off the back of that to say, hey, you're a really valued customer, here's a 50% discount off your next purchase. So as you can see here on my screen, there is just a small number of ways in which you can use the Autopilot platform to automatically notify your team and engage your customers based on the interactions they're taking across your site and also your marketing materials. Now, as you start to build out more journeys, I definitely encourage you to take a look at the different app connections we have, such as Twilio, which I'm using here for my SMS, and also Slack, which I could use in my send notification if Slack is a channel that you're using at your end to communicate internally. We also have a feature that enables you to send postcards, but I'm getting a little bit carried away here with all of the different actions you can do, so I'll let you discover that one on your own. But just a quick hint, it's over here next to the SMS shape. It's mail a postcard, so definitely check that out if you're looking for some more multi-channel marketing and communication touches. Okay, so we've covered lead nurture journey today, and as a follow-up to that, or as a secondary topic today, I did mention that I also wanted to take you through one of my favorite platform features, which is the Proactive Headsup. Now, some of you may have already engaged with this feature through Autopilot, particularly if you've recently signed up for a trial, and some of you may even be using it today, in which case, fantastic. I'm really pleased to hear that, and I hope you love it as much as I do. If you are using it today, I do plan on sharing some really innovative use cases towards the end of today's session. So please do stay tuned. And if you're keen for that inspiration when it comes to better leveraging this tool, I will definitely get to that and show you some examples so you can get just a bit more inspiration about how to use this fantastic tool. Now, for those of you that aren't using Proactive Headsup as yet, I'm really hoping that you'll be itching to use it by the end of today's session because it's such a quick and easy tool to set up, and it does generate leads on your web pages that you may not be generating if you don't have any form or tool to turn those unknown users into known users. But let me start with the basics first. So Proactive Headsup is an interactive pop-up message that's shown to unknown users when they visit your web pages. Here at Autopilot, we track unknown users via the Autopilot tracking code and the cookies that are associated with their Autopilot profile. So if we don't recognize the cookie session when they land on your web page, we'll assume that visitor is new and try and engage them with varying different messages to capture their email address and turn them into a known contact. Now, let me demonstrate this for you on the work mode. So I've navigated to my homepage in an incognito window today so that Autopilot doesn't recognize me as a known user. And you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of my screen that a small pop-up message has appeared. And this is our Proactive Heads-Up feature. Now, the message is truncated at first, and the reason we do this is so that it's really unobtrusive as possible if a user does want to navigate through your site without engaging with the heads-up message. If they do want to engage with it, however, all they have to do is hover over the message and you'll see the full text appear, as well as that call to action button, which in my case is the sign me up button. So, how do we go about creating one of these in Autopilot? Well, it's a very good question and it's a really easy one to answer. So, I'm in the Proactive Heads Up place within the Autopilot dashboard, which you'll find just above the settings cog in the left-hand side navigation. To add a new Proactive Heads Up, you will just need to navigate to the big green plus button at the bottom right-hand side of your screen, select it, and you'll see here that we actually offer 3 different versions of Proactive Heads Up: a call to action, a reply back, and a subscribe. Now, all 3 will be configured in pretty much the exact same way, and they will also look exactly the same to an end user. The main difference between the 3 is the way in which we're asking an unknown visitor to engage and give us their contact details so that we can create a contact profile for them in Autopilot and do one of a few different actions. The call to action version is designed to drive unknown users to a specific page or action trigger, such as a feedback forum or an event sign-up page. We use this a lot at Autopilot to drive webinar and event registration, so it's a really good place to start. If you do have a lot of webinars or events, definitely come in here and check out the Proactive Call to Action version of Proactive Heads Up. Now, the reply back is the closest form of heads up we have to a live chat, but it allows you to start an email conversation with an unknown user and then have that conversation emailed to a specific member of your team who can then reply back to the unknown user and keep that line of communication open. We use this version of Proactive Heads Up a lot on our knowledge base, just to ensure that visitors are finding the correct information that they're searching for. Now, lastly, the subscribe option is the version that you saw working on my work mode site. And really, this is designed to allow you to capture a contact's first name, last name, and email address, and then add them to a list in Autopilot. Because this is the version that I love the most and also the version that you'll see working on a lot of our customer sites, I'm going to take you through the setup of this so that you can see how easy it is to set up, configure, and send live on your web pages. Now, as I mentioned earlier, these configuration steps are going to be the same across the call to action and the reply back. So just bear that in mind as I'm going through and then put those configuration steps into action if you want to come in later and create a call to action or a reply back version. Now, the first thing you'll want to do when setting up a Proactive Heads Up is select the page that you want this message to appear on when unknown users hit your tracked Autopilot pages. So you have 2 options here. The first is to show it on any tracked page, and the second is to show it on a specific page. Now, if you do select the specific page option, you have a couple of different ways in which you can configure this with the page URL itself. So you can select a specific page URL with is. You can look at begins with, ends with, contains, or does not contain. And how that works is you just pop in the URL, and let's say for the sake of this, we're going for my homepage. And then you also have the option to select a secondary page if you want this message to appear on more than one. So for example, let's say I wanted it to also appear on my Contact Us. For today though, let's go with any page because I really want to capture leads across my entire site. Clicking continue will take you through to step 2, which is my favorite step of this configuration and will allow you to fully customize the message that appears to the end user. The first thing you'll want to do is select a team member and then type in a message that should appear within the Proactive Headsup pop-up. After you've selected the message, you can then let us know whether you want us to capture the first name and last name alongside email, or if you just want to capture their email, you can leave these 2 checkboxes unticked and we'll just be asking the end user for their email address. Now, because I am going to use this Proactive Headsup to add people to my newsletter subscribe list, I'm going to go ahead and tick the first name because I do want to be able to personalize my emails with their first name when they do receive that newsletter from me. The next thing I'll want to do is determine my call to action or my button text. And then you'll just want to select the color of the button. So in my case, I usually go with pink, but if you do want something pretty plain and simple, you can also select a URL link look and feel. Let's today though go a bit out of the box and I'm going to go with green. Hitting continue, I'm now asked to select the list that I would like to add contacts to whenever they engage with this Proactive Headsup message. Now you do have a couple of options here. You can select a pre-existing list to add them to, or you can create a new list just by selecting the top option, popping in your new list name, and then hitting the green tick button to create that list within Autopilot. Click continue, and before you publish this Proactive Headsup message on your site, you'll have a quick preview of exactly how that will look to the end user, or in our case, an anonymous user, when they land on your page. Again, you can see it's truncated at first, but when somebody hovers over this message, they'll get the full copy as well as the option to enter in their first name, email address, and then click the sign me up call to action. If you're happy with it, you can go ahead and publish and exit. And the next time an unknown user lands on any page with the Autopilot tracking code on it, they will see this Proactive Headsup message appear, which is asking them to sign up for the newsletter by entering in their first name and email address. Now, when they do enter in their first name and email address and click sign me up, the great news is that we will capture that information within Autopilot, create a contact record for them if we don't already have that email address in Autopilot, and then add them automatically to my newsletter mailing list so they can start to receive that email communication in future. So you've seen how easy it is to set it up, but does it work? Well, out of the 500 beta testers we surveyed back in August, roughly 46% of them reported seeing a 10% increase in leads through Proactive Headsup. So I definitely encourage you to play around with the functionality on your site and let us know if you have the same level of success or even more. Now, to finish with, I did promise that I'd show you a few examples of Autopilot customers that are using Proactive Headsup to really great effect. So let's start with Granular. Now, Granular uses the subscribe Proactive Headsup, and they actually drive newsletter signups on their blog page, which is another example of the use case that you saw working on my work mode site today. So you can see here, truncated at first, but when somebody does hover over it, the full message appears, and that end user has the option to enter in their email address and then click get our newsletter. In the back end, we'll be creating a contact record for them in Autopilot and then automatically adding them to the newsletter list so that they'll receive that communication piece from Granular in future. Now, City Internships is another customer of ours that is using the reply back version of Proactive Headsup, and they're using it to drive partnership opportunities on their educators page. So you can see here that they're using the reply back to ask people to leave a message if they're interested in talking and learning more about the partnership opportunities that City Internship has to offer. Last but not least, Simple Green Smoothies is a customer of ours that is using the call to action version of Proactive Headsup to drive subscriptions for their smoothie service. So you can see if I hover over the Proactive Headsup message here, I'm being asked to join Simple Green Smoothies for their free Simple 7-day experience. And if I click the Tell Me More button, because this is the call to action, I'm being redirected to their sign up page where I can enter in my details and sign up for a free 7-day experience. Now, as you can see, there are so many different innovative ways to start using Proactive Headsup and driving conversions of leads on your web pages. If you are keen to hear more though, our marketing team has written a really fantastic blog called 10 Creative Ways to Use On-Site and In-App Messaging, which I'll share with you in my follow-up email, but you can also access by heading on over to our Liftoff blog and just typing Heads Up into the search bar there. Now, let's head back into Autopilot because we have reached that 15-minute Q&A, and I'm really keen to get to some of your questions and hopefully answer as many, if not all, in today's Q&A session.